Hello, dear listeners. Happy Yule. Happy first day of winter. As you know, letters to Binx are normally a patrons-only perk, and the entirety of this one is. It's the full thing is 50 minutes long. But I wanted to share this excerpt from it because this is kind of Dee first arriving at Max and Allison's house. It sort of gives you a sense of what the relationships are, where her family is now. It's something that she might be referring back to in future episodes, and you know that we don't like paywalling things that are necessary for understanding the show. Also, don't worry, this excerpt doesn't end on a cliffhanger or anything like that. You know that's not how we play. But this is just a little excerpt from the full letter to Binx to give you a sense of where the denizens, or in this case the Dennies, are now, so that you can understand what she's talking about as your first and later. So, happy Yule from the Kohlers. Enjoy. Dear Binx, despite Yensid's petulant silence on the matter, I'm returning to Salem for Yule. If he wants to tell me that I can visit my family, wonderful. If he wants to tell me that I cannot, we can have that conversation. If he wants to sulk in Castle Avernus until Yule has come and gone in order to punish me for something I said when I was not myself, then he's free to do so. But I shall not allow his temper to keep me from my family, or from sorely needed rest. I confess that I have never been more grateful to have my own home. Tradition dictated that as an unmarried woman, well, approaching spinsterhood now, I suppose, since my 30th birthday came and went in Paradise Falls, I should have lived with my parents until marriage. This was impractical. I love my parents, truly, but part of me will never forgive them for not believing us that night. When I think of my mother, the first thing I imagine is never a laugh at a shared joke or a gentle gaze at some tender moment. It's the memory of her bending over me with a condescending little smile as I begged her for help. It isn't fair. I know it isn't fair. It must have sounded so fantastical. And yet, a part of me will always blame her, just as a part of me will always chafe that my father went to his grave believing that nothing happened that night beyond a particularly exhausting party. At any rate, I acquired my own home, and I'm glad of it. Until Jens's tantrum ends, I still need to sleep. Oh, gods, I hope he doesn't withdraw his offer in a fit of pique. And when I sleep, I will dream, and when I dream... Do I cry out? Do I weep? I feel as though I must make noise enough to awaken an entire house, since I cannot abide the thought of my family's solicitous, pitying expressions. Or, gods forbid, of them asking me to tell them about the dreams. I can't speak of them, Binx. Even here, even when I may only be writing to myself, I can't speak of them. The idea that Gods, I can't even bring myself to write his name. The idea that even now, he still has power over me. That I'm allowing him power over me because he exists only in my mind. What began in Wyvern as shadows that I scarcely recalled in the morning have gestated into horrors so vivid that they seem more real than the waking world, and I despise myself for allowing them to do so. Why him? Why do I only dream of him? I've hardly dreamt of the Sanderson sisters in months. I haven't dreamt of Bellows, who nearly killed me. It's almost as if Enough about my dreams. They torment me enough in my sleep without my dwelling on them while awake. At any rate, unless Yensid decides to contact me between now and the moment when I reach the mists, I hope to be in Salem by nightfall. Love, Dee. Dear Binx, there's no feeling quite like that of coming home. Every place I've noticed has its own air, the temperature, the humidity, the smell, the quality of the light. Sometimes it's obvious. Even in winter, Crescent City was as muggy as Salem in midsummer, and its late winter days felt more to me like early spring. Other times, the difference is more subtle. The Yuletide climate of Alsace was not wildly different from that of Salem, but I found my heart aching for the light, sweet scent of witch hazel blossoms, or the sight of those feathery yellow flowers like the final defiant patches of sunshine before the onset of winter. Strange, the tiny discrepancies that bring homesickness. But when I emerged from the mists into the outskirts of Salem, it was the feel and the smell of home, and I confessed to shedding a few tears before heading into town. I also confessed to the ridiculous urge to pull out my journal and begin taking notes, as though I were enumerating details for my patron. It seems that after 3.5 years, I simply cannot stop myself from being his little scholar. He still has yet to contact me, but that is not a reason for complaint. I'm fairly certain that when he does reach out, he will demand that I return to my travels. Every day he pouts is another day I spend at home. Through an act of supreme willpower, I managed not to vandalize Philip Wittabane's statue as I passed through the town square, although I did pause to make a rude gesture in his direction. Before visiting my family, I took a moment to step into my own home and delight in everything being just as it should. My own quilt upon my own bed, the little tin of my favorite tea which I could drink from my own cup, my chair near the hearth with Poppy's appallingly but lovingly embroidered cushion upon it, although it was far better than the abomination of a baby blanket that I had knitted for her. How small and confining it had all seemed when I left. How small and confining it would no doubt seem again if I remained for more than a few days. But right now it seemed small in the way of a newly hatched chick, a soft and sweet and fragile thing that I longed to cradle in both hands. The sun had nearly set, and I felt a sudden, irrational stab of anxiety. I wanted and did not want to knock on my brother's door. It had been 2 years, and I had changed. When last I had seen him, only a trace of necrotic energy had infused my body. I ate less, I sometimes forgot to breathe for minutes on end, but I still shared those basic necessities of the living. And then, too, there were all the things that I had done in the past 2 years. I've killed people since then, Binx. Of course, they were both trying to kill me, and I feel neither guilt nor grief over felling Anne Bonny's crewmate. But Harriet, the spoiled cardigan opera singer in Gracie Manor, I know I only killed her because of Alistair Crump's manipulation and deceit, but nevertheless, I killed her, and there was no true need for me to do so. That is to say, nothing about the other ways that I've changed. I think about my last communication with Aslan. The way I groveled at his feet, so desperate to appease him, and I scarcely even recognized that cowering wretch as myself. I made myself so small. Without meaning to, I thought of what Bellows had said.
Should have smelled the rot in you when you walked through my door.
I had assured Yensid that I didn't believe him to be some source of rot and corruption, and I meant it, and yet, what is rot except some dead thing that eats away at one's living flesh, making one smaller? In that sense, as I become smaller for him, am I rotting? Would my family smell it too? But no, it isn't Yensid who's wearing me away, it's my dreams. It's the exhaustion. It's the dread of doing what my body demands, and then the terror and helplessness when I finally give in. I wouldn't have debased myself like that if I hadn't been so tired. God's help me, it isn't Yensid who I'm shrinking to make room for. Of course, that last part is nonsense. The dreams are my own mind. They are me. The only way that wouldn't be the case would be if... But the dreams were another consideration. It would be dark soon, and if I didn't go, there would be little for me to do other than sleep. And if I slept, I would dream, and having those dreams here... It was the foulest thing I could imagine, carrying him into my home like a plague rat infecting my own life. waking up and not knowing for a moment whether I was David and Genevieve Denny's daughter or his. It was horrifying enough in an inn or a bedroll, but to have it happen in my own room? It was a desecration. For the first time, I wondered whether coming home had been a good idea. But it was too late for second thoughts now, so I went out to knock on my brother's door. And to my relief and delight, it was opened by a girl of 14, with glossy chestnut hair and long limbs that she was finally growing into. Poppy's joyous expression erased all doubts from my mind. "Aunt Danny!" she shrieked, throwing her arms around me. I laughed, hugging her back. She had at least an inch on me now, and with those arms and legs of hers, she would be even taller by the time I saw her next. "They didn't tell me you were coming!" Because I didn't tell them either. I hope they don't mind the surprise. I didn't know I would be able to come home, and once I did, I shrugged. Any letter I sent wouldn't have gotten here until I was already on my way to Litwalk. Are your parents home? They should be back soon. Mama thinks she can get this case settled before the holiday if she hurries, and Papa... Well, tailors are always busy this time of year, you know. Everyone wants to give clothes for Yule gifts or get their best mended. She backed up to make room for me to come in, bouncing a little on her heels with excitement. The air smelled of baking bread and of chicken stew, rich with garlic and potatoes. She must have been making sure it would be ready when her parents came home. Poppy had learned to cook since I left. I felt a little pang that I'd missed it. To push that pang aside, I nudged her. "So, you're home alone and not getting into mischief? I failed you. I'd think you would at least have your sweetheart over." When Poppy's face fell, I flinched. Oh, I'm sorry. No, it's nothing dramatic. We're still friends. Best friends. Just... I don't think it was ever anything more than that, you know? Oh, yes, absolutely. Because they'd both been 12, and that was how things were at that age, but there was no way to say so without sounding condescending. You knew you preferred the company of other girls, and she knew she preferred the company of other girls. She doesn't prefer girls, she likes both. You can like both and still prefer girls, I do. She stuck out her tongue. I thought you only liked books. I like girls who bring me books. Anyway, you were both girls, and you both enjoyed each other's company, and since you had yet to meet a person who made your knees go weak, you thought that was all there was to it. Or maybe you had met someone who made your knees go weak, but it frightened you, and the familiarity of your best friend felt safer. And then one of you felt real attraction that was worth risking your heart for, and that was that. Right? Poppy gave me a rueful little half-smile. Am I that much of a cliché? I don't think so. We're just both the same kind of cliché. Which have you found out what it really feels like? She blushed and looked at the floor, her smile getting wider. Mm-hmm. Poppy played with her hair, still smiling at the floor. I don't think she knows I exist, but... God, she was adorable. Did Luz take it too hard? No, Luz bounces back from everything, and I think she knew that every time we held hands or whatever, it felt a little silly. Good. She'll find somebody who makes her weak in the knees, too. I would never have admitted it to Poppy, but I was glad. I liked Luz, but the last time I had visited, she had gotten much too excited when the subject of the Sanderson sisters came up. She struck me as the kind of person who would light the black flame candle just to see what happened. Not exactly someone I wanted to be romantically entangled with my niece. Poppy spent the next half hour telling me about all the beautifully mundane details of her life and asking me about my own journeys. The door opened just as she was laughing so hard she nearly fell off her chair. Papa, Aunt Danny says she saw gummy bears. I never said I saw gummy bears. That would be ridiculous. Gummy bears are secretive and would never show themselves to an outsider. I said I drank gummy berry juice, and then I bounced to the top of the tallest tree I had ever seen. I grinned at Max and Allison as they came in, their cheeks red with the cold. Danny! Max hugged me, and I held the hug longer than strictly necessary. I felt safe. It had been a long time since I'd felt safe. Then he stepped back, frowning. You look awful. I figured that if I looked too good, people would forget we were related. He didn't smile, and I felt my own smile slipping away. I shrugged. I haven't been sleeping well. That's part of why I begged a vacation off of Yensid. If I can't sleep well in my own bed, where can I? The moment the words were out of my mouth, I regretted them. Where indeed? That awful thought came back. Dreaming of him in my own house. To my horror, a hard, sore lump swelled in my throat and my vision blurred with tears. No. Hey. Max reached for me again. I wanted to say that I was fine, but if I tried to get any words around that lump in my throat, I'd burst into tears. After less than an hour in Salem, I'd be that stupid, crying little girl again. Poppy, help me set the table, Allison said, and I hoped she knew that I was silently thanking her. I was going to break down anyway. I could feel it, and I may as well do it when there was no one in the room except for someone who had never quite stopped seeing me as a child anyway. As soon as I heard them leave, I let the tears come. Not in huge, shuddering sobs like they wanted to, but quietly, melting the lump in my throat rather than shattering it. Max hugged me, and I let him. It wasn't as though I had any dignity to cling to at the moment. When the storm had passed, I pulled back, wiping my eyes. I'm sorry, I'm just exhausted. The smallest emotions feel like the great upheaval. He's working you too hard. No, it's not him. I flailed internally. I could not, under any circumstances, tell Max about what had happened on Titan. I went to a place with a creature that could enter one's dreams. I've been having nightmares ever since. Yensid's working on a way to get rid of them, but until then... I spread my arms in a helpless gesture, then immediately rushed to a new subject. Oh, but you'll never believe who I saw there. Do you remember Ernest? And just like that, I was able to steer the conversation away from topics I preferred not to discuss. I led him into the dining room where Allison and Poppy were setting the table, and we all chatted over stew. Allison told me about all the work she'd been doing as a solicitor, with the usual dutiful words about how her current clerk was no proper replacement for me, and about how there was talk of her becoming a magistrate. Max went on about a recent trip he'd made to Damonlu to bring elements of the latest fashions to his designs. Nothing too daring, of course, not in Salem, but a line here, a pattern there. It was all so normal. So Danny, how is it being a wizard's apprentice? Max asked. I felt my smile slipping and I forced it to stay in place. I'm embarrassed to admit this even here. A few months after the fever carried Father away, with Mother becoming increasingly erratic, and all of us seeing the shadow of the helpless child I'd been in Poppy's face, I traveled to Darkon in hopes of studying magic. After all, where better to do so? I'd taught myself a cantrip or two, but I'd made little progress, and then I'd met Yensid, and the way he'd phrased his proposal... It's so stupid now that I know who he is. Of course the King of Darkon doesn't have time to take on an apprentice. And I knew so little about the workings of magic that I thought at first that this was how an apprenticeship began. The teacher imparted the student with a measure of his power, and then taught the student to harness that power along with her own, like using one flame to light another. Ridiculous. I want to believe that he didn't deliberately mislead me, that I misunderstood a proposal made in good faith due to my own ignorance. I want to believe that. Honesty would lead to two unpleasant admissions. That I was a dupe, and that I was a witch, who had acquired my abilities through a magical book gifted to me by a powerful and malevolent being. So I shrugged and said, well enough. Yensid can be difficult, but I enjoy the work. I'm learning more than I would have believed, and it's... I paused. How could I say that the thing I loved most about the work was how dangerous it was? Titan, Westview, Titan, the Boiling Isles, and Titan notwithstanding, whenever I came face to face with death and defeated it, I felt competent. I felt powerful. Perversely, the dangers made me feel safer than ever. I didn't want Max to know how much danger there was, though, so I simply said, it's challenging. And from that point, the conversation stayed on simpler topics until it was time for me to return home, with promises to come back for dinner every night through the solstice. Once I got home, I made a circle of salt around my bed and sat, anxiously. I'm writing this letter now to forestall going to sleep. I don't want to dream here, Binx. I keep checking my journal to see if Yensid has replied yet in the hopes that he will deliver me from the need for sleep, but, of course, he's still sulking. I won't give him the satisfaction of asking him again. I can wait him out. But I can't outwait sleep. Love, D. This has been The Wonderful World of Darklords. We have no affiliation with Disney or Wizards of the Coast. All music recordings used in this episode are in the public domain and were obtained through museopen.org. Titles and links are in the show notes. The Wonderful World of Darklords logo was designed by Haylight Jones. You can find links to their work in the show notes. If you'd like to support the show, look for us on patreon.com or find our tip jar on Red Circle. Thanks for listening.